Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video. The baby dog and I, and Paul is there too. And I want to talk about psychology for a while. I will also always touch on other subjects too, because that's what I do in my videos. Because all the subjects that are important, they always dock onto all other important subjects. It's all interconnected. All of the information and the matter and materials. So I want to talk about the psychology of men. There are different men in the world, okay? There are kind-hearted men, there are indifferent men, and there are very mean men. So I don't know the exact percentage of it. All I know is that the real kind-hearted men are in the minority percentage. So in the percentage of, I don't know, 5% kind-hearted men. Okay, so it's just a rough estimate. I don't know. Like really what do I mean by kind-hearted? Kind-hearted were they would never get mad at a woman, they would never beat a woman, they would never retaliate. That's what I mean by kind-hearted. So they would never hurt an animal, they would never inflict pain on another. They would look after others. And then among this 5% of kind-hearted people, there's then an even smaller percentage of total unicorn men. Okay, and there are two in the White House right now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They are the ultimate unicorn men. Okay, that's the truth. Those are the ones that they're not only kind-hearted, they go the extra 100 miles and more, okay, to help others. They risk their lives to get things done against all odds of society, against the meanness and the brainwashedness of society. So yeah, it's those rare gem unicorns. Okay, they exist. They exist among men, they exist among women. Okay, I don't know if I am I'm not one of those. I'm not an evolved soul to that degree. Okay, I'm not like Greta Thunberg, who sat on the street for hours and hours and hours every day after school as a child, okay, as a young teenager, sitting there all by herself. No one else would join her. Okay, then very gradually other people saw her because it was shown in the news. Some people photographed her, and there were newspaper articles made. In the very beginning, very gradually it evolved into total fame, because she's a unicorn, very, very rare, and that is so rare that it is viewed by society as an anomaly. Like something that is just weird. We don't do that. They think that's just weird. What a weirdo, right? She thinks she's better than anyone else. All of these things are going through people's heads. Instead of just seeing it for what it is, there is a unicorn girl sitting on the street to petition for the earth, for Mother Earth, okay? To petition to save the earth from global warming, for the politicians to see that and to do something about it, to get better laws, to have better incentives. It all starts with incentives. It could be so easily done. The Democratic Party did nothing for it. Absolutely nothing. Matter of fact is, somewhere around 2015, I don't know exactly, but could have been earlier, somewhere around there, the Democratic Party turned completely mafia, corporate agenda, organized crime, owned. Completely. It was, I don't know, the wrong people got in, they completely hijacked it, made it into something else. Tried to use it tried to sell it to the public as that what people thought it was, but in reality it was no longer that what people thought it was. It was no longer democratic, it was no longer environmental, it was no longer animal friendly, it was no longer Mother Earth friendly, it was no longer pro-women. They made it look, they packaged it in a form like this, but in a hysterical, nonsensical way. Okay. With all of this pride activity and all of that. First of all, the word pride, the concept of pride is already, there's something very wrong with that to begin with. There is so much wrong with all of this, you don't even know where to start. I mean, to unravel this entire thing with the Democratic Party, that would take a whole year of making videos just to talk about that. So I talk about it off and on here and there, and I mention certain aspects of it. So it would the video would be way too long if I tried to discuss all of the things that went wrong with the Democratic Party. Okay. But for everyone to really, really understand this, the Democratic Party is owned by criminals. Okay, this is a fact. It is orchestrated, held by criminals, and it is infested and used by stringholder slaves, puppets. Okay. That's what's going on. They even sent a package of cocaine to Hunter Biden, who resided in the White House for a while because he didn't know where else to live, because he's so down and out, drug addict. This has to be talked about, okay? People who are criminals, they don't have the right to their personal privacy, lives, and so on. I said it in my last video at the other house. If you bake cookies with your family in your kitchen and for Christmas, and everyone is very holy and nice and wholesome. Okay, that's what holy actually is supposed to mean. That's where the word comes from. Wholesome, okay, healthy. If you're healthy, and then you don't need an Alexa robot to spy on your life, right? And have some pedophiles listen into your baking cookies in the kitchen, and then with the children, and have the pedophiles listen through the Amazon Alexa device. It's disgusting. It's despicable. I mean, Jeff Bezos should be sued right and left, up and down. I mean, he should be sued out of everything. that Amazon needs to be shut down. Okay? And all of his devices too. That guy's a criminal. So, but anyway, if you are cooking something nice, if you are baking cookies, if you are loving your dog, if you are talking baby talk with your animals and children, if you're nice and lovely and cozy in your cozy home, it's none of anyone's business to spy on you and then laugh their heads off because your life is so fluffy and different to theirs. Okay, it's all, I'm gonna get into the psychology of it in a moment, because I don't look down on anything, I don't hate anyone, but I have to point out these facts for people, because healing begins with facts. Healing begins with looking at facts. You have to look at facts if you want to heal, obviously. So that's the very first step, okay? Know thyself, okay, is what Socrates said. It's the basics of inwardness, meditation. First look at that what actually is going on, and not what your ego wants to make it out to be, okay? Not what your ego is trying to interpret things. What kind of, not the some kind of wishful thinking that the ego is creating about your situation and yourself and your mind. Okay? But instead, do the Vipassana meditation. Yeah. Look at what is going on. Look at what is happening. This is very, very important. That's the only way we can heal. I do it all the time. Okay. And I often cry. And it's okay. It's perfectly okay to do that. Crying is healing. That's the truth. I cry every day. Every single day. I cry for the animals. I cry for Mother Earth. What's the abuse that's being done. I cry for the children that are being trafficked. I cry for all innocents. I cry also for myself. Sometimes I feel really sorry for myself for different reasons. Because I suffer a lot, so I still suffer with mental issues and trauma that has not been completely resolved. But I am in that process of resolving and dissolving the trauma. Okay, so, and I speak about this publicly and openly because everyone who speaks about the truth, particularly within themselves, is going to help other people on their journey. Even if it doesn't feel like this, even if it feels like, oh, it just bounced off or something and you go on to another video. Something about it might make you come back to the video or to other videos. Something about it might make you feel understood. And that is absolutely critical to have for society. Because most people do not pack this stuff out. They don't even pack it out to their loved ones. They don't even discuss this within their own families. And they don't even want to look at it within themselves in their own room. My mother was a perfect example. A long time ago, I said to her, come with me to Geneva. We go to Esther Odermatt. She has the the Centre Primal Therapy Help Center, and had with Miriam Odermatt at that time, but I think they went their separate ways now. I think she's in St. Gallen now in Switzerland, and Miriam, I don't know where she and her husband went, so I have never heard from them again. But at that time, long time ago, I was off and on going over there to Geneva, to the Therapy Help Center, the Primal Center, which they both were studying under Dr. Arthur Janov, and I was there as well, so a long time ago, in LA. And then they went to Geneva, and then eventually I went to study psychology again in Germany. And while I was studying psychology in the south of Germany for 2 years, I was off and on going to see Esther Odermatt. And somewhere around that time, I asked my mother, why don't you come with me? Do this therapy with me together. Then we can address all of these problems that we have, all of these issues, and the miscommunication between us, and misunderstandings and fights, and you learn more and you go into your own mind. And she stamped her foot on the ground where the floor was shaking, and she said, should I now at age 70 go back into therapy? Are you crazy? And I said, forget it. And I just walked away and never talked to her about this again, never asked her again. Because I see she's in utmost complete resistance towards that, and also towards me looking at her when she's vulnerable. Okay, that brings me back to this Bible story that Derek Jensen mentioned in one of his books, which I think was very important for him to highlight and bring out to the public. Also, particularly in a very critical sense. So what is the Bible there trying to tell people? What is this, some kind of extortion, you better never see your parents in a vulnerable, weak state, or else, and that's a threat, and that's completely unethical and wrong. It's evil, it's totally wrong, that Bible story of the story of Ham, where he sees his father drunk on the bed, okay, and then he's condemned into eternity or some brimstone stuff. Okay. Total bullshit. Okay, we need to see everyone, whether that's our parents, because they're not our gods, they're not our mini gods, they're not medieval gods, they are not our superiors, okay? They're older, maybe they know some things about this or that more, but that's about it. It's not like they're elevated into some kind of guru state. Most of them don't know that much. And the children exceed their parents quite rapidly at a very early age already. And that makes the parents mad a lot of times, where they say, oh, you are going to college? And they're getting really mad because they didn't go to college. So that hurts their egos. Again, we need to see everyone in a vulnerable state. It doesn't matter, that could be the Pope or the Dalai Lama, or any president, or Mother Teresa. That's a whole story by itself, Mother Teresa. Okay, I can talk about this for over an hour in one video alone. So I've talked about her several times already. It's a real horrifically painful and sad story of the incarnations of Mother Teresa. Okay. I'm not getting into it now. But, or whatever guru or priest or whatever, these people, if they are honest, if they are living a real wholesome life, they will share their inner troubles and their worries and their fears and their embarrassments and their shame and all of these different feelings and their aspirations and what they want to do and their sexual fantasies, all of that, okay, they would bring out, whether that feels bad in that moment or not, because they know that it's necessary to bring that out and talk about it, because they know they're not the only ones suffering from suppressed stuff. And the more suppressed your stuff is, the more it causes stress in people, okay? Those people they're sitting like a pressure cooker on information that is bothering them, but they can't talk about it. That's the absolute worst stress. It doesn't get any worse. That can make people sick, okay, physically. That can cause physical illness, that kind of stuff. So I want to make this comfortable here. All of these things, they need to come out if we want to heal. And whether that's our mother or whether it's our daughter who is asking us to join the therapy, join the therapy. Do that for her, do it for yourself, okay? You will come together with your daughter and you will finally understand each other. You will dissolve any kind of miscommunication or fights. It would all be healed and dissolved. You can have a beautiful, beautiful friendship with each other. My mother didn't do it, and because of that, I eventually had to break off from them. Then she accused me, of course, of escaping and getting off the hook. Getting off the hook? From what? Like it's my responsibility to stay there and clean her house and take care of her or something? It's my responsibility. And I drove off when she was 70. She was not incapacitated at that time. So that came 20 years later, okay, and that's when my brother was there, and my brother took full advantage of my parents. But there's no way I could go back, and I wouldn't handle it psychologically. I would get real mad and all of that. So I am not Buddha mind state for a very long, not in this lifetime, and not in the next one, and not in the following one. So that will take eons of lifetimes to finally get to those higher levels of consciousness, of lifestyle, right? Where nothing bothers you anymore. No, I get triggered, and most people get triggered, and it is what it is. But first of all, we need to know what triggers us, and then what overwhelms us. What would make me completely become unreasonably angry or something. And I have to avoid that situation, obviously, because I've gotten mad at my mother and my dad too, and my brother a few times. Not a whole lot of times, but it happened handful of times with each person. And I didn't want that to happen again. So they made me very mad, but I mean, there's a reason why they made me mad, obviously, because they were totally unreasonable. But it's out of neurosis, but I am alive too, and I have feelings too, and obviously get triggered too, right? So, but when we know this is, you have a mother that is just jealous and constantly toxic, right? I mean, there comes the point when you say, this is enough now, okay? I have to move halfway around the earth and settle somewhere else and just leave them behind with their toxicity and try to heal my mental illness as best as I can. Okay, we have to do it. We are our own stewards. We are our own mothers. We are our own caregivers. I'm giving care to myself. I love myself. I love my body. I love my mind. I want to heal. Okay, also write that down and hang it on the wall. Very important. And Teal Swan did amazing things. She was so advanced. She knew all of this intuitively, what she had to do. She was so abused in a cult, in a Mormon cult, in a satanic Mormon cult. It's disgusting, the kind of stuff that's out there in Utah and Idaho. Really, really sick stuff that's going on there. Like what happened with that JonBenét Ramsey, for example. That's another one of those stories. That girl did not survive these sicko people. Okay? Teal Swan survived it. And I think that Teal Swan, that JonBenét Ramsey would be about the same age as Teal Swan is. So they come from the same generation. One died at age 6, the other one survived and made it through. But with what kind of trauma? Okay? Horrific trauma. But because she's a real old soul, she comes into this existence already with all this, with these pre-packaged wisdom information. Okay? And with all of this this intuitiveness and the psychicness. So she had to tear herself off from these abusers. The reason why she stayed longer until she was 19 with the abusers, because that's all she's ever known, these abusers. And it didn't feel right, but then she felt like she went back there because she felt like that was her, somehow like a code or something. And that's the only thing she's ever known in terms of a belonging or some sort. That's what explains why a lot of people, they will stay in abusive cults until their lives are literally at risk. So the kind of stuff they did with her, they sewed her into a corpse and stuff like that. I mean, unbelievable stuff that they did to her. It's disgusting and awful and horrific. It's so sad, you know, and that's why I make these videos, and that's why she writes books and talks about this in videos, and has this therapy where she has different types of therapy gatherings, completion process, and curveball, and like people come on stage and she does like a reenactment and some kind of role play thing. She has these different types of modalities that she uses, and she is very, very good at that. Very, very, very good. On the same level as Dr. Arthur Janov. And that says something, okay? I mean, those are on the absolute top worldwide and in history when it comes to therapy processes. So I want to create a therapy help center that is free of charge for everyone, because I strongly believe that all healthcare should be free of charge. I very, very strongly believe that. And that's why earlier today I thought back to the Soviet Union and the way we have been brainwashed against it. So much on some levels, but then on other levels, I'm coming from this hippie era, from like the hippies were my teachers sort of in school, and then those were the ones that were in favor of communism and socialism, and they had good arguments for it. So I was kind of like in a sort of torn society in this regard. But the more I learned now about communism and what was, except for of course the totalitarianist part, is that's never good to force people. That's never ever good. It's always causing resistance and problems and all of this. And it's a dictatorship, of course. And that's a very tricky subject by itself. That takes me 100 videos to discuss this in length. The pro and contra, the plus and minus of all of this. So it's very nuanced. It's not like black and white. Okay, we have to look at all of this and in order to get deeper into it. But in general, the Soviet Union, they had all of that for people. They had free healthcare. They had, for example, I had a dentist from Yugoslavia in LA, and I've been having dental problems lately. And that dentist, I went there I first went to an Iranian dentist that was recommended to me by this hip doctor and all of that, and they hyped this guy up and everything. And that Iranian doctor, he said, it's gonna cost you $10,000 to just do this one tooth, and then he threatened me with the C word and all kinds of, it was unbelievably unethical, that guy. But he had candles in the window, and he thought that gave him the right to say all of this. Okay, so, but Paul, I was naive at that time, was very gullible, easily swayed by people. Paul said to me, that guy's a complete shyster and crook. Don't go there again. And then I didn't go there, and I looked around for other dentists, and I finally find this Yugoslavian dentist trained in Yugoslavia, and that was, Yugoslavia used to be part of the Soviet Union. And he was trained while they still had the Soviet Union in that area. And here he was trained in a form of dentistry that was way advanced to the West. Advanced in so many ways. Way more holistic, way more reasonable common sense. They did have common. That was common, the common sense for them. And like learning things that are practical, that are non-invasive, okay, that don't that cause the least amount of suffering and blood and the least amount of work. And so that's how he was trained. What he did is, first of all, he only charged me $200 for it, while the Iranians, it's going to cost you $10,000. It's going to be such a bad operation. They're going to have to put you under. And, I mean, they have to excavate the roots, and it's going to be such a bloodbath. Oh, right, that sounds not so inviting. So anyway, the Yugoslavian dentist, he said, oh, it's very simple. All I have to do is I take this tiny little circular saw and I do zip, zip, zip here. There's that on here. Zip, zip, zip. Okay. And then after he did this, zip, 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 it was already sewn in half. Then you can just pull out the individual, because the back teeth have two roots, right? So it makes sense to cut it in the middle and then pull the individual roots out by themselves. And he did that. The whole thing was under 10 minutes. The entire thing, including the injection of the anesthesia, the sewing, zip, zip, wiggle, 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 very gently, wiggle without blood. There it is. Oh, that's such a long root. He got it all out. There's hardly any blood. Whoa, I can't believe it. There is no abscess or anything. No, it doesn't feel like it. So I didn't even know about Dr. Scholl's at that time, about the anti-infection formula. So he didn't even put anything that would disinfect. He didn't even need to. I think he put some betadine on it, and which is also it's a reasonable approach, right? And so then I think he didn't even need to stitch it. He just said, oh, just don't eat anything for a couple of hours, and then eat soft stuff and only eat on the other side. It's going to be healed up in a few days. And it was, okay? And I thanked him from the bottom of my heart. I was so grateful. So, reason-based approaches, and that's what they had in the Soviet Union. No wastefulness, no. What we have here was the Biden criminals. Was the exact opposite of that. It was the opposite of reason. It was a war approach. They started the war in the Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people died. Gruesome death because of the Biden criminals and Zelensky. It's unbelievable what they have caused, the suffering. And that is why, because the majority of people got scared towards the end of the Biden criminals, and they thought, no, we can't have this go on. Things have to get really bad before people see it, right? So, and that's why they voted for Donald Trump, the majority. But the Biden criminals would have tweaked the election results again. And that's why Elon Musk had to do what he had to do to bring attention to the Donald Trump campaign, okay? And he did, and he spent, I don't know, like $80 million on that, okay? And he had a raffle, and he gave a bunch of people $1 million. And that's what brought this into in the swing states, and that's what brought it into the attention of the public, and that's why Donald Trump had such a landslide. Okay. But then it doesn't last very long. Okay. Just a few months into the Trump administration, and the Biden criminals, which are still there behind the scenes, of course, George Soros in his 90s still seems to be operating from the convalescent home, and some other people that are string holders. Elon Musk said that he is estimating that there are probably around 100 string holder people that are working together globally to cause terrible, terrible corruption in the governments worldwide, particularly here in the United States, but also in England. They have already completely taken over the government in England. It's very sad. And in Canada as well. So it's horrible. Absolutely horrific. And that's why Elon Musk and Donald Trump, that's why they worked so tirelessly to get back into the White House in order to be able to fix things. And they are. And of course, everyone that's on the Epstein list does not want that list to be publicized, which, makes a lot of sense. But it's gonna be publicized sooner or later. It's going to be. But and then other horrific, hideous corruption and crime. Okay. And all of these criminals, they do not want to be investigated by Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They want to be staying in their obscure state. They want to stay. They want to stay where they are behind the stage. They want to keep their masks on. They don't want anyone to find out who they are and what they have done. But gradually they are finding more and more people. It's coming out to the surface now. The disclosure is happening, okay? Very gradually but steadily and certainly, okay? And that's why the corporate agenda is so fiercely campaigning against them now. And that's why they have paid so many people $40 an hour to go to the Tesla stores to protest there and even do damage to people's properties. And that's why they even called out, I don't even want to say it, because it is so incredibly criminal what they are doing. That's why they're and you know what I'm talking about. I don't even want to say it. It's so painful for me to talk about this. That's why Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they fear. They're terrified to death. Okay, because the corporate mafia, the corporate mafia is terrified. They are terrified to death that they are being investigated by Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And Donald Trump and Elon Musk are terrified to death, literally, because the corporate mafia is paying hitmen, murderers for hire, to come after them. Okay, so it is so horrific. I would give my life anytime. I would give my life I would use my body as a living shield to protect Donald Trump and Elon Musk. If I was friends with them, I would. That is how infinitely much I love them and value them. And understand their importance of existence here on Earth at this time. Okay. They are the two unicorns that are saving the whole planet. But most people don't know that, because most people don't even hear what they say. Because most people, they listen to the fake news that are paid by the corporate mafia to lie. Okay. And all of these people, they don't even listen to what Donald Trump or Elon Musk say. They're so divided that they're not even willing to listen to what they have to say. Instead, they listen to the biased information and all of this, the propaganda. It's very, very sad, all of this. So infinitely sad. This is important for me to bring this up, okay? Very important. But I want to get into the psychology of all of this and the psychology of this identification with certain groups, People need to first of all really look at this and understand how this comes about, okay? Why they are so biased towards one group or religion or another. Okay, so why are you biased? You need to ask yourself this question. Why are you so divided? Why are people so identified with their particular peer group? To the point where they don't even want to hear what the other people have to say. That's very dangerous. That leads to war. Okay. That needs to be avoided. This kind of division. I made another sweater here with 2 different materials. I like it. This is nice. I'm making a lot of sweaters, and I made all of these pillows. They are very nice. It's real gorgeous. I love those pillows. They're so comfortable. So it's very important to look into one's own mind and to really look at what's there. What's going on? Why are people divided? Why are people attached to this or that group or cult or society? Or that or this belief system? Why are they so attached to this? Why are they identifying themselves with that? I think these questions are vitally important. And then I want to talk about, for a moment, why some of these violent men are sadistic and why they hurt women or any being. Why are they hurting others? So far I know, and some of these people have shared this with me, and I'm grateful for that they shared that with me. Very grateful. That's good. That is the path of healing, okay? Shared. Say what it is, okay? So I asked one of the haters why this one criminal that I saw that report 48-hour crime report, and there was this lady, I talked about this particular case many times, where the guy, this guy Brian, was working for a woman for 2 years as a handyman, and he was doing her driveway pavement, and he was always kind of like probably not very friendly with her, and she actually felt rejected by him and thought, oh, I better leave him alone and just let him do his job. I'm not gonna try to be too friendly with him if he doesn't want to. But what it really was is he felt insecure, and he felt like he was attracted to her, he was in love with her. She had this great job where she was also in charge, where she was a manager, and she was always upbeat and always happy and cheerful and always nice to everyone, and that brought out his insecurity. And so before he even tries anything, he already decides she's never gonna like him, and then he talks himself into this miserable hopelessness. He had a girlfriend, but he liked the other lady better. And then one night he snaps. He goes over to her house, and she made the big mistake of letting him into her house. He says, I need to show you something in the basement. And they go down to the basement, and there he strangles her and cuts her neck and leaves her for dead in a puddle of blood in the basement, and walks out and even locks the door behind him. And then the people at her job, they knew something was wrong, because she was always reliable, she was always there, and she didn't come to the job for 2 days. I think she was there for, that's why they have this 48 hours, is this average time limit, where the police now, if they haven't found someone they were looking for, like a victim, in this time frame of 48 hours, that the chances are very, very high that the person is no longer alive. So, but the people at the job, they looked for her, they called her, and they finally got to her house, and they found her there and called the ambulance, and she almost died. She almost did, and they just barely helped her survive. So she'd lost a lot of blood through her neck, but the knife did not hit the aorta, the main artery. So if it had hit that, she would no longer be alive. But it hit other blood vessels that also leaked out a lot of blood, but not completely to the point of total blood loss. She was in a coma, and probably being in a coma all that time for a day and a half or so, however long that was, that may have also protected her from leaking out more blood. So because if we're in an agitated state, then the blood gets pumped faster and would get pumped faster out of the body. So she was in this coma, hibernation sort of, that actually protected her, and also being hypothermic in the basement may have also protected her. So all of these conditions, that as gruesome as it is, but helped her to survive. And when she was in the ICU, She was in a coma, and it was like 2 weeks later, so when she finally came out of that coma. And they asked her who did it. And she said, Brian. So I asked this hater because I had the feeling the hater could help me out with this and explain to me what the hell is going on in this Brian's mind. And I said, what caused Brian to hurt this woman to that degree where he left her for dead? He thought she was dead. What caused him to do this? To murder a woman that he worked for, that he had a crush on. And the hater said right away, without any hesitation, he wanted to feel in charge again. And it was very eye-opening for me to hear him say that. Very eye-opening. He wanted to feel in charge again. So he didn't feel in charge with that woman. He worked for her. The blue god says yes. 1111. I'm not making this up. That's the truth, okay? And the blue god protects all of us. And so, why did he feel like he was not in charge? These things need to come out to the open. Okay? These are the things that people need to talk about. And I will address this again and again and again in my videos, because I think this is absolutely vitally important to talk about this. Bring this vulnerable stuff out. That's your only chance. Look into your own mind. That's your only chance. There's no other way, okay? You have to look into your own mind. Every single one of us, whatever we struggle with, okay? And our sadistic psychopath, that is the worst mental illness there is. The absolute worst. And the most dangerous of all. And that's why it is so vitally important that these people understand that the only path there is forward for their own lives and for all life around them is that they honestly look at their own issues. That's what I wanted my mother to do. Become vulnerable, talk about your own issues. She was terrified to death of that, to be seen by me, the daughter from hell that she labeled crazy. That's another way of feeling in charge, right? So if she did therapy with me, she wouldn't be in charge anymore. What happens when we're not in charge anymore? Okay, or this idea of being in charge. It's just an idea. It's an ego idea. No one is in charge. Okay, you're not in charge. I'm not in charge. There could be an earthquake and any time, or there could be an airplane falling on the roof. I'm not in charge. I'm trying to be in charge in a reasonable way to take charge of my life, right? Of my life, of my loved ones, in a good way, in a kind way. I take charge of that, what is within the range of taking charge of, in a good and reasonable, kind-hearted and protective way, okay? Not to take charge because I want to be boss or something. But ultimately, none of us is in charge. We are not on top of the world. We are not the string holder of events. Okay? Events unfold. We're in this interconnectedness matrix as little dots, as ants of activism, right? Hopefully, as ants of agency. But the matrix moves and churns, and things are happening, movements are happening within the earth and beyond, and we're not in charge of that. So just this entire idea, I want to know the weather, and so I can, like, I can't control everything, okay? It's impossible. But let's control in a good way. Let's take charge of our lives in a good way, and take charge of our health, and do holistic healing, and do reasonable approaches, like the dentist from Yugoslavia, okay, like the way they have handled things in the Soviet Union, in a reasonable way. So let's make things reasonable again. That'll be great. And that starts with every single person in their own individual lives. And then if we do that, then it will be easy to do it as a whole of society, in larger political structures and governments and so on. It's very, very important. That's why this inwardness meditation process that's the foundation for this reason-based lifestyle that I'm talking about. A lifestyle of kindness and love and protectiveness of others, okay? Peace and compassion. That's what we want to create in the world. And the haters and the sadistic psychopath, their body cells too want peace within themselves and for others. It's the ego, it's the brainwashing, it's this pride and the shame that causes all of these problems, that causes the mental illness of all kinds of psychiatric disorders, like sadistic behavior, psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism, manipulativeness, okay, borderline. I have borderline. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily done in a mean way. Okay. I don't do it in a mean way. Borderline is when you get overwhelmed and you snap and stuff like that. So that's what happened several times with my parents, because they triggered me into state of being overwhelmed, and when I get overwhelmed, I get angry sometimes. So that's borderline, more in a self-defense, self-protective way, right? But still, that's a reactive way. It's not how the Buddha responds to someone else. But we're not there yet. We don't have to be there yet. But we have to keep in mind that this is our goal, okay? That is the goal to aspire to. And we should do whatever we can. And we should heal. And the first step to healing is become aware of how you feel and what you're feeling exactly towards this or that person, and why you feel that way. Write it down. Create a dialogue with yourself. If you can't share it with other people, at least create a journal where you write these things down. You can also make a drawing if you don't have words for it. Okay, a lot of people, a lot of teenagers do that. That is a very self-protective thing to do. It's important to do a journal, even if there's a scream for help in these journals. That's good, but the next step is show it to someone. Show that journal to someone. Show it to a psychologist or a social worker. Discuss that with others. That is very important. In the past, long time ago, they only had religion, but they had a very wide variety of different denominations and churches, and everyone did it a little bit differently, right? And they had some of them with bad people in it that made things bad, and then they had some pastors that did it well. They did it as well as they knew how to do it, right? And they had something called a confession booth, which obviously evolved later on into me going to a psychiatry office, right? And talking to psychiatrists and psychologists. So, or even better, primotherapy, which is a very, very deep level therapy approach. So, but at least some of these had confession booths, and one person would sit there and they didn't even see each other. They could just hear each other through this screen or whatever they had there in the middle. And because it's obvious that people don't like to sit on smoldering issues. It feels bad. They may have done something terrible, and then they sit on it, and they know it's terrible, it doesn't feel good, and they've never talked to anyone about it, and it feels absolutely wrong. So they need to talk to someone about it. So they talk to this pastor or minister about it through the confession booth. And then the minister is just supposed to listen and not intercept and not do anything about it, not go to law enforcement and just let it go, or maybe in the end say, repent to Jesus and all of your sins are forgiven. No, that is not exactly working either, does it? No, has never worked that way. So now the way we do it is, if you want to talk to Jesus, the soul. I don't like these sounds of the hearing aids. It makes me crazy in my head. Those sounds, shrill hearing aid sounds. I don't like it. This is a real problem. But anyway, we have to talk to someone, and I talk to the blue god, so directly. But if you want to, you can talk to the blue god, or you can talk to your Jesus, whatever idea you have about that person or soul, right? Or you talk to your grandmother that is either alive or not alive anymore. You can still talk to her in your room. Talk it out, okay? Just talk about it in your bed. Talk to the ceiling. And cry it out. This is very, very important. Infinitely important to do. Okay. You guys take care.